Hi, this is Mark Ogden, and I'm with Beth Lindop, our Liverpool correspondent, to talk about the best centre-backs in the FC 100. Obviously, if Beth covers Liverpool, it's fairly obvious who has won the best centre-back of the year. I'd imagine by a landslide. It's Virgil Van Dijk, who finished ahead of Arsenal's William Saliba and Antonio Rudiger from Real Madrid in the top three. So, Beth, Van Dijk, obviously you see him all the time. He's a bit of a Rolls Royce of a defender. He's never seeming to kind of show wear and tear. So it's no surprise he's top of the list, is it?
No, it's not. He's had an excellent season, and I think we saw his best level a couple of seasons back when he sort of 18, 19, 19, 20. He was totally, without doubt, the best central defender in the world at that point. And I think this season we've probably seen him getting close to that level, which, considering the fact he turns 34 this summer, is really impressive. So yeah, he's been massively impressive. Obviously, Mo Salah has got a lot of the individual accolades this season, and rightly so. He's had a tremendous season at the top end of the pitch, but I think Liverpool are equally indebted to Van Dijk, and not just his quality, but his leadership on the pitch as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's his presence. I mean, obviously, physically he's huge. He's 6'4", 6'5", and he's solid. But he just has this presence. He has an aura about him, doesn't he? You can tell he's the leader on the pitch, and I think he intimidates opponents. And obviously, I know there was that great start in the title-winning year back in 2019-20 when nobody took him on and beat him. I think he has kind of lost that, not even a yard of pace, a half a yard of pace since then. But he still reads the game so well. And I think when players look at him, I think some players, I think even Wayne Rooney made the point that he felt at times that Van Dijk had got a bit lazy this year because he knows that he doesn't have to do as much as other defenders to stop a fault because he reads the game so well, he can drop off a little bit. And at times that has opened up the opportunity for strikers to go at him. And one or two have had a bit of success. I think we know that Beto had a good game of the derby when he gave Van Dijk a bit of a runaround at times. But still, Van Dijk for me is just such a presence on the pitch. I think that kind of seeps through, doesn't it? That Liverpool know they've got this guy on the pitch that could basically get them out of a hole whenever they need it.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the word aura there. I think that probably just sums up why he is so impressive. It gets thrown around a lot in football these days, but genuinely, I think his aura does really make a difference. I think some strikers see him and just immediately think, well, I'm never going to get past him. And then obviously you've got Alisson Becker, who's sort of in a similar category behind him. So yeah, he's I think his presence on the pitch is massive, and also the way that he makes whoever is playing alongside him look better. I think there's been a couple of occasions toward the back end of the season where Arne Slot has rotated a little bit. We saw against Brighton, I think it was a few weeks back, where Jarell Quansah and Ibrahima Konate partnered each other at centre back, and Van Dijk was on the bench, and you could just tell the difference straight away. And it's not just about the quality of those players; it's about, I think, Van Dijk's leadership, the way he's constantly, I mean, when he even sat up in the press box, you can hear him talking to people on the pitch. He's constantly sort of making demands of his teammates and things like that. So those sort of things, as well, as much as the quality that he's got on the ball, is so important to what Liverpool do. And Arne Slot has made the point several times this season that he's never quite worked with someone who's as much of a leader as him. On the training pitch as well, the fact he's constantly driving standards, and when you consider that a new manager has come in as well, and I think Virgil van Dijk has really helped with that transition as well.
But he's 34 this summer. He'll start next season as a 34-year-old Premier League centre half, and we've seen plenty of players go on into their mid to late 30s. But I guess at 34, we are inevitably looking at the kind of the tail end of his career. But Liverpool still felt he was worth a new contract. I think nobody could argue with that. I think there were three players that had contracts, as we know. There was Virgil, there was Mo Salah, and there's Trent Alexander-Arnold. Trent is off probably to Real Madrid, but the other two, I think the other two were the absolute key. I think if they could let any go, it was Trent. They had to keep Salah and Van Dijk. And I think it's hard to separate Van Dijk and Salah, but I do think that the qualities that Van Dijk brings beyond what he does just purely as a footballer made him the most important for me. I think, going forward, I guess the nightmare scenario for Liverpool is at some point they will have to replace him. And, how do they do that?
Yeah, that's the big challenge now for Liverpool. I mean, I think it probably speaks to the sort of dearth of real elite centre-backs around at the moment that so many of the top clubs were in for Dean Howson from Bournemouth. Obviously, he's Real Madrid bound now, and what a signing he is for them, because he could absolutely, marshal their defence for the next 10 years. So I think beyond him, at the moment, you look at sort of young upcoming centre-backs, I don't think there's too many outstanding candidates at the minute. So I think Van Dijk and the prospect of replacing him is going to be really difficult. I'm sure those conversations have already started. internally at Liverpool. We know Ibrahim Konate is out of contract next summer, and the club are keen to get him tied down to a new contract. And there's maybe hope that he can, having played alongside Virgil for a number of years, maybe step up and fill that void. But as much as Konate is a top player, has had a great season, I still think there's a big gulf in quality between him and Van Dijk. So yeah, it will be a real challenge, I think, for Liverpool to try and replace him. The one thing I will say is, you saw like Thiago Silva playing until he was 38, 39 at Chelsea. And I think Van Dijk is maybe the sort of player who could do something similar, maybe not to the same extent where he's playing nearly every minute, but certainly sort of still having a huge role in the squad. But yeah, the succession planning has to start pretty soon, I think, for Liverpool.
I mean, I guess we'll stop at the number 2 on the list, William Saliba at Arsenal. I guess some Arsenal fans would say, maybe a bit of hyperbole, that he's the next Van Dijk. I can see some elements in his game that he has got that silkiness about him, but the leadership qualities are quite different. I think we've seen when Gabriel's not there, Saliba's not quite as reliable as he is when they're a partnership together. But I guess in terms of, like, if you're looking around the Premier League, William Saliba is probably the next best thing to Virgil van Dijk. And who knows, strange things have happened. Could you see him in a Liverpool shirt in years to come?
I'm not too sure the Arsenal fans will be keen on that. I do really like Saliba. I think he's a top player, and I think as well, Van Dijk obviously was impressive at Celtic and Southampton, but he obviously didn't get his move to Liverpool until he was in sort of his mid to late 20s, and it's then when he's really hit his peak. Quite often see that, don't we, with centre backs, so they peak a little bit later on. So for the likes of Saliba and even Konate, really, the next few years is maybe when we could see them really come into their own. But yeah, Saliba is a top player, and I suppose that's why he too has been linked with a move to Real Madrid over the next couple of seasons.
I mean, the other day in the top 3 is Antonio Rudiger, who's a totally different defender to Van Dijk and to Saliba. He's they're all silk, and he's all steel, and maybe a few other sharp bits as well. But he's a player that's proved himself. In the Premier League with Chelsea, he's done it with Germany at international level. He's been Real Madrid's kind of enforcer over the years. Again, he's a player that's kind of, in his early to mid 30s. He's a player that they'll probably need to replace at some point. But Rudiger is a different type of defender, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he's a massive personality. I think we saw that with some of the dramas that have gone on with Real Madrid on the sidelines toward the end of the season. But I think the impressive thing about Rudiger is, I remember a couple of years back when he was at Chelsea, there was a large section of the fan base that really didn't rate him and didn't like him, and a spell where he was out of the team. So for him to not only fight back from that, but then to go on and to be, a starter for Real Madrid, to be winning titles with Real Madrid, speaks to his character as well. But yeah, very different kind of defender, I think, to both Van Dijk and Saliba.
So we know the top 3, and I guess we'll have to look forward a little bit. Can we see Virgil van Dijk topping this list in a year's time? 34 pushing 35, is that possible, or will he inevitably be overtaken by, I don't know, a Dean Howson, like say at Real Madrid, or one of the other young players that's coming through right now? Will Ruben Diaz have a comeback season at Man City next year? Will it be Harry Maguire at Man United? Will Virgil van Dijk still be at top of this list in 12 months' time?
I mean, Harry Maguire could be top of the centre forwards list the way his performances have been this season. But you know what? I think Van Dijk would certainly back himself to still be right near the top of that. I think it will be difficult for him to surpass what he's done this season in terms of his consistency. But I think in terms of maintaining that level, a little bit like Mo Salah, he's someone who keeps himself in really top physical condition. I think he takes real pride in the fact that he's club captain and that he should be setting the example. So I think he will be backing himself to be right up there at the top. But I think certainly in the next couple of seasons there will be a real opportunity for the likes of Dean Howson, William Saliba to really state their claim for being at the top of that list.
So we know who the top centre back is. We're going to throw over to Graham Hunter and Samuel Marzano to talk about the best centre midfielders.